Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 243 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where whenever we open our big mouths, we put our feet in it, just as the gaffer used to say to us.
Speak for yourself there. Oh, well, okay. No, it does pretty much apply to me, too.
It's happened, yeah. Yeah, don't pretend.
Folks, go ahead and pull up a bench in the common room. I'm Sean Marchese, the Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the Man of the West, who now has a chance to show his quality, Alan Sisto.
Oh, so it seems. So it seems. Well, folks, today, thankfully we're not going to see my quality. We are going to finally see Faramir's quality in the last episode of The Window on the West.
I feel like we're going to say that word a lot this episode.
I think we will.
But handsome is as handsome does.
Indeed.
And folks, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Tolkien's stories of Middle-earth, a few pages at a time.
We dive into the details, point out connections to other writings, and talk about our favorite themes.
And we also make sure we have a lot of fun along the way. So, we're super glad you've joined us.
We are, and we know you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get into the chapter, it's time for one of our favorite intro segments this season, Meanwhile Elsewhere in Middle-earth. So today is March 7th. In fact, it's actually been March 7th for the last 7 episodes since we finished the first episode of Herbs and Stewed Rabbit.
Oh, you just wanted an excuse to say herbs again, just to bother our friends in the UK.
Well, maybe. I'm just showing my quality, man. Anyway, it has been a very busy day for Frodo and Sam. From passing into Ithilien, discovering that ancient stone basin, cooking a pair of conies, encountering Faramir and his men, watching a battle with a Mumak, and walking blindfolded to Henneth Anun only to reveal the ring to Faramir. Yeah, full day. I mean, come on. What's on your calendar for today, Frodo? I don't know, Sam. Let's see.
I've got my wedding to plan, my wife to kill.
That's brilliant. Great tie-in.
But it has also been a busy day for our old friends, too.
Yeah, it has.
Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas have been on a bit of a road trip.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, they left Helm's Deep. And earlier today, as Sam was playing defense attorney at the forest trial of Frodo, they actually stopped briefly at Edoras on their way to Dunharrow, where they arrived as darkness fell.
I'm just picturing Sam as an attorney. Objection, Your Honor. Sauce. Oh, man. Sam.
Overruled.
Yeah, absolutely. The witness will continue his testimony. Oh. Sam's just totally befuddled, like, wait a minute.
What do you mean? What do you mean overruled?
That's a legitimate objection.
That was clearly sauce.
Sauce, man. So Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, of course, they stopped briefly, as you mentioned, at Edoras, and then arrived at Dunharrow at dark. And while we'll read this again sometime next year, there is no way we're passing up this opportunity. When they arrive, we read this. The Lady Éowyn greeted them and was glad of their coming, for no mightier men had she seen than the Dunedain and the fair sons of Elrond. But on Aragorn most of all, her eyes rested. And when they sat at supper with her, they talked together. And she heard of all that had passed since Theoden rode away, concerning which only hasty tidings had yet reached her. And when she heard of the battle in Helm's Deep, and the great slaughter of their foes, and of the charge of Theoden and his knights, then her eyes shone. But at last she said, Lords, you are weary, and shall now go to your beds with such ease as can be contrived in haste. But tomorrow fairer housing shall be found for you. But Aragorn said, Nay, lady, be not troubled for us. If we may lie here tonight and break our fast tomorrow, it will be enough. For I ride on an errand most urgent, and with the first light of morning we must go. She smiled on him and said, Then it was kindly done, Lord, to ride so many miles out of your way to bring tidings to Éowyn, and to speak with her in her exile. Indeed, no man would count such a journey wasted, said Aragorn. And yet, lady, I could not have come hither, if it were not that the road which I must take leads me to Dunharrow. And she answered as one that likes not what is said. Then, Lord, you are astray, for out of Harrowdale no road runs east or south, and you had best return as you came. Nay, lady, said he, I am not astray, for I walked in this land ere you were born to grace it. There is a road out of this valley, and that road I shall take. Tomorrow I shall ride by the paths of the dead.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yep. Well, and then we get that wonderful discussion or well, debate, really,
Yeah, yeah,
between Éowyn and Aragorn as she grows more and more frustrated with inaction, or with not being near Aragorn,
maybe.
or both. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, little of column A, little of column B.
Hmm.
Now, when he reminds her that it is her duty to remain with her people, we read, "Too often have I heard of duty," she cried. "But am I not of the house of Eorl, a shield maiden and not a dry nurse? I have waited on faltering feet long enough. Since they falter no longer, it seems, may I not now spend my life as I will?" "Few may do that with honor," he answered. "But as for you, lady, did you not accept the charge to govern the people until their lord's return? If you had not been chosen, then some marshal or captain would have been set in the same place, and he could not ride away from his charge were he weary of it or no." "Shall I always be chosen?" she said bitterly. "Shall I always be left behind when the riders depart, to mind the house while they win renown, and find food and beds when they return?" "A time may come soon," said he, "when none will return. Then there will be need of valor without renown, for none shall remember the deeds that are done in the last defense of your homes. Yet the deeds will not be less valiant because they are unpraised." And she answered, "All your words are but to say, you are a woman, and your part is in the house. But when the men have died in battle and honor, you have leave to be burned in the house, for the men will need it no more. But I am of the house of Eorl, and not a serving woman."
Oh man, that is such great stuff. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I just her fire, her
Mm.
just I cannot wait to get
She
there.
fire. That's exactly what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
she is angry, and
yeah,
she has a right to be angry.
she does. And she wants that battle. We see it's not just that she's wanting to avoid the fate of sitting around and waiting for death to come to her home. We look earlier in the passage I read that when they were talking and she heard about the battle in Helm's Deep and the slaughter of her foes and the charge of
Hmm.
Theoden, that's when her eyes just shone.
Hmm.
That's her. That's what she wants. And I cannot wait to get there. Talk about
Yeah,
her courage as yet another in a long line of incredible women written, if sometimes too briefly, by Tolkien.
absolutely.
Of course, we're not done yet because Aragorn's arrival at Dunharrow isn't the only thing that happened on March 7th to our old friends. Our favorite mischievous hobbit, one Peregrine Duke, is on a road trip of his own, but Gandalf's doing all the driving. Sean?
Well, Gandalf's not stupid.
No, he's not. You do not have a license for this vehicle.
Nope. A light kindled in the sky, a blaze of yellow fire behind dark barriers. Pippin cowered back, afraid for a moment, wondering into what dreadful country Gandalf was bearing him. He rubbed his eyes, and then he saw that it was the moon rising above the eastern shadows, now almost at the full. So the night was not yet old, and for hours the dark journey would go on. He stirred and spoke. "Where are we, Gandalf?" he asked. "In the realm of Gondor," the wizard answered. "The land of Lórien is still passing by." There was silence again for a while. Then, "What is that?" cried Pippin suddenly, clutching at Gandalf's cloak. "Look! Fire! Red fire! Are there dragons in this land? Look, there is another!" For answer, Gandalf cried aloud to his horse. "On, Shadowfax! We must hasten. Time is short. See, the beacons of Gondor are alight, calling for aid. War is kindled. See, there is the fire on Amondine, and flame on Elenach, and there they go speeding west. Nardal, Edelas, Minrimmon, Calenhad, and the Halifirian on the borders of Rohan."
You knew I had to give you all those cool names.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and no doubt. I mean, really, I'd almost just ended it at the beacons of Gondor are like calling for aid, war is kindled, right? That's all we needed. But I'm not going to turn down the opportunity to hear you name all those. That's just
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
Too fun.
So after that, Gandalf starts to give Pippin a bit of a history lesson, though, let's be honest, Pippin was too tired to pay much attention. Gandalf explained how the lord of the city had beacons built on the tops of outlying hills along both borders of the Great Range, and maintained posts at these points where fresh horses were always in readiness to bear his errand riders to Rohan in the north or to Belfalis in the south. "It is long since the beacons of the north were lit," he said, "and in the ancient days of Gondor they were not needed, for they had the sun stones." Pippin stirred uneasily. "Sleep again, and do not be afraid," said Gandalf, "for you are not going, like Frodo, to Mordor, but to Minas Tirith, and there you will be as safe as you can be anywhere in these days. If Gondor falls, or the ring is taken, then the Shire will be no refuge. You do not comfort me, said Pippin, but none the less sleep crept over him. The last thing he remembered before he fell into deep dream was a glimpse of high white peaks, glimmering like floating isles above the clouds as they caught the light of the westering moon. He wondered where Frodo was, and if he was already in Mordor, or if he was dead. And he did not know that Frodo, from far away, looked on that same moon as it set beyond Gondor ere the coming of the day. And that's why I wanted to read that passage, because it's one of those few times where we get a direct link between, Frodo and Sam thinking about Merry and Pippin, or vice versa. It's a great moment.
Yeah. And though we haven't seen that moment, it'll actually come next chapter.
That's correct.
Yeah, it is a great moment. It's one of those kind of like peering over the hedge wall to remind us that Frodo is still doing his thing and kind of align us with where we are on the timeline. It's very cool. Really well done by Tolkien. And we know that's the kind of stuff that he kind of agonized over, right? Getting that right, making sure that the timeline matched up.
Oh man, the detail and paying attention to that timeline.
Yeah.
You look at the drafts that we see in the history of Middle-earth, and you can just see how much effort he put into trying to make sure this timeline was correct. Yeah. Good stuff.
So very cool. Excellent, meanwhile, elsewhere in Middle-earth. But now, why don't we go ahead and return to Frodo, far away in Gondor, not yet waking up to see that moon.
Not yet.
But enjoying a little nightcap before bedtime. Until he's not enjoying it anymore. But we'll get there.
Yeah, we will.
Alan, why don't you get us started?
All right. I'm going to pick up exactly where we left off last time when Faramir was lamenting the fact that the last king of the land of Anarion had no heir. But the stewards were wiser and more fortunate. Wiser, for they recruited the strength of our people from the sturdy folk of the seacoast, and from the hardy mountaineers of Erin Nimrais. And they made a truce with the proud peoples of the north, who often had assailed us, men of fierce valor, but our kin from afar off, unlike the wild Easterlings or the cruel Haradrim. So it came to pass in the days of Cirion the 12th steward, and my father is the 26th, that they rode to our aid, and at the great field of Celebrant they destroyed our enemies that had seized our northern provinces. These are the Rohirrim, as we name them, masters of horses, and we ceded to them the fields of Calenardon, that are since called Rohan, for that province had long been sparsely peopled. And they became our allies, and have ever proved true to us, aiding us at need, and guarding our northern marches and the gap of Rohan. Of our lore and manners they have learned what they would, and their lords speak our speech at need. Yet for the most part they hold by the ways of their own fathers and to their own memories, and they speak among themselves their own north tongue. And we love them, tall men and fair women, valiant both alike, golden-haired, bright-eyed, and strong. They remind us of the youth of men, as they were in the elder days. Indeed, it is said by our lore masters that they have from of old this affinity with us, that they are come from those same 3 houses of men as were the Númenóreans in their beginning. Not from Hador the golden-haired, the elf friend, maybe, yet from such of his people as went not over sea into the west, refusing the call. All right.
My gosh, there's so much to unpack there.
I know, there's a ton to unpack, but it's like, how do I break that down? Do I make it a shorter reading? No, I won't. So let's start back at the beginning of that.
Let's do that. And actually, I want to remind folks of where we left off last time. You know, as you said, it was Faramir talking about how the last king of the line of Anarion had no heir, and just all the foolishness that they were getting up to, you know, seeking false knowledge from astrology and, you know, elixirs and things like that.
Yeah.
And obsessed with the past, not thinking about the future. And then that's where Faramir comes in here and says, but the stewards weren't as foolish as the last kings of Gondor.
Yeah.
They were wiser, and they were also more fortunate. Some luck was involved, or maybe fate, as the case may be.
As it may be,
if luck you call it, right?
Right. And he bases this claim on the way that the stewards recruited and formed alliances. First, we get internal recruitment, right? We get the sturdy and hardy folk of both the seacoast and the mountains. Okay, so we're not talking about just city folk here. You know, we're bringing in people from the outskirts of Gondor in order to strengthen the fighting forces. Yep. And then there's an alliance with the Eotheod. Those are the peoples of the north. I love that.
Yeah, this is great. And we know that they're actually distant kin to the men of Gondor.
That's correct.
And I love all this because it strikes me as a wisely non-isolationist. I dare say even multicultural policy.
Indeed it does.
We see in Tolkien so often, first of all, isolationism.
Yep.
Never a good idea.
No.
or almost never a good idea. I can't think of any case where it's a good idea, but
Not off the top of my head, no.
So usually isolationism is a path to disaster in Tolkien,
Right,
and
right.
separation between, peoples who should be aligned
Right.
and should be working together is a path to disaster. And the stewards seem to have understood this.
That's
They
correct.
sought not only to make the most of their own strength within the country of Gondor, but also make alliances with the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And then Faramir tells us the tale of Cirion and Eorl and how the Eotheod became the Rohirrim.
That's right.
So this was 14 stewards back from the 12th to the 26th steward.
Right.
And this was in Third Age 2510, so it's more than 500 years ago, because it's now 3019.
Long time back, yeah.
Quite a long time. Maybe not as the elves reckon things, but as men reckon things for sure.
That's just a few days, according to Elvis'
Right, exactly.
timeline.
Exactly.
Last week, oh wait, no, that was 500 years
No,
ago.
that was 500 years ago. I can't keep it straight anymore.
I was there, Gandalf, last month.
We know, Elrond. We know you were there. Shut up. You're always reminding us that you were there.
I've always been there, Gandalf.
Have I told you my father's a planet? Yes, you have told us your father's a planet.
That's great.
We know.
I was there, Gandalf, when you were still in a Mond, you lazy Astari.
We know, Elrond. No, so more than 500 years ago,
Yeah.
Third Age 2510, and this is the Battle of the Field of Celebrant.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we've got the Balchath, a group of particularly fierce Easterlings, and they're attacking a very weak Gondor at this point. Now, Gondor had already sent the Red Arrow. We'll see that again next season when it gets sent to Rohan. But it had been sent north to the Eotheod asking for help, but they hadn't gotten a reply yet. Now, they're engaged in battle. The Balchath cross the Anduin. Cirion's army is cut off. And then it's attacked by orcs as well, coming down from the mountains. Related or not, we don't know. But now it appears to be a truly hopeless situation. They're cut off by both the Balchath and the orcs.
Right. But then, then, Eorl the Young led his horsemen from the north. They were entirely unexpected by both sides, right? The Gondorians didn't know they were coming. The Easterlings and the orcs didn't know. But here they come riding. They cross the Anduin. They attack the rear guard of the Balchath.
That's right.
And they defeated them and saved the Gondorian armies.
And pretty much crush everybody thanks to the use of their cavalry.
Right.
Now, 3 months later, Cirion gives the land of Calanarthon to Eorl and his people, and that's the land that would become known as Rohan, at least to the Gondorians. They just call it the Mark if you're, of the Rohirrim.
Right.
Now, for more on the tale of Cirion and Eorl, you want to see that chapter in Unfinished Tales, and then listen especially to episode 119. That's a Tolkien Reading Day episode where we spent a good 20 to 30 minutes on this section.
That's right. That was a fun one.
Carry on my wayward son.
Every chance we get.
Oh, man.
That is one
of
of the best. One of the best ever.
That was a lot of fun, no doubt about it.
Ridiculous, but hilarious.
20-minute lead up to one bad pun. All right. Spoilers.
All right. So then after all of this, Faramir adds that, these people have been our allies ever since. Again, over 500 years of alliance.
It's a long alliance.
Gondor and Rohan. That's right. And they have guarded the northern border and the Gap of Rohan, which of course is that gap between the Misty Mountains and the White Mountains.
Right.
And then he talks about them as a people, right? He goes beyond the history lesson and the politics of it all. And he talks about them as someone who's actually experienced them. We get a real glimpse into how the men of Gondor view these rugged people of the North.
That's right. He talks about how they've assimilated as they've had to, but they've kept their own language and customs, which I think he seems to admire here. I actually don't get a sense that he's criticizing that.
No, not at all.
And then he talks about how much we love them. More than you know, Faramir. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The men are tall and the women are beautiful.
You don't say, Faramir. Yeah. Guess we now know his type. Let's see how that plays out in a couple of seasons.
That's right. And of course, not only are they tall and beautiful, they're both valiant. And I think that's an important recognition we're going to talk about later.
I love that. Yeah. He recognizes that. Again, going back to that Meanwhile Elsewhere in Middle-earth segment, we were talking about, how frustrated Eowyn is. And here's a man who recognizes that the women of the Rohirrim are valiant too.
That's right.
I kind of think that might be all she's looking for sometimes.
That might indeed be what she's looking for. We'll see.
Doesn't seem like a lot to ask, but
would you just recognize that I'm valiant, Aragorn, please?
Seriously.
Yeah.
But then, he talks about, their appearance, right? They're golden-haired, bright-eyed, and strong. And I shouldn't even say their appearance, because this is really going deeper than just, looks.
That's true. Bright-eyed and strong. I mean, okay. kind of physical appearance, but also very much kind of identifying traits that are
Yeah, exactly.
characteristics. Bright-eyed is not just a physical trait.
It's
It,
not
it sort
just a
of,
physical appearance thing, right? It's
yeah,
not just
it
like, oh,
implies a
you
lot
know,
more.
they're
Mhm.
they're beautiful people because they have bright eyes. No, they have this fire in them, this
Yeah,
energy. And in fact,
absolutely.
he tells us that they remind the men of Numenor of the youth of men. He sees a lot of that vigor that is faded out of the Gondorians. The
I'm
Gondorians
sorry,
are
you
kind
said
of
youth
this.
of men, and I'm just picturing a bunch of like 17-year-olds hanging outside of a 7-Eleven, vaping and, skateboards. And like, that's not the kind of youth of men we're talking about here.
No, no. We're talking about the youth that are the future, man.
I
Come
know, I
on.
know. Youth is
Oh,
wasted on the young. What can I say?
that's right, it is. Yeah, so he sees in the Rohirrim a lot of what Gondor could be, I think is the what
Yes,
what we can read between the lines here.
you're absolutely right.
And then we see why that is, because then he goes on to tell more about, the legend of the origin of the Rohirric people, and
That's right.
they're not as unrelated as you might think.
No, they're said to come from the same three houses of the Edain, right? The House of Beor, the House of Hador, and the people of Haleth, right?
Right, and specifically, we think they're of the House of Hador, but from those who stayed behind, didn't go to Numenor.
That's right. And we're going to do a real quick sidebar on this because it's a little complicated, and the process of the drafts and changes and things like that are kind of worth diving into for just a moment. There was a bit of a process getting to this point in the text. Hammond and Skull point that out in their Reader's Companion. In editions prior to 2004, the text read, "Yet from such of his sons and people," while in The War of the Ring, the draft was originally "from those same three houses of men, as were the Númenóreans, from Beor and Hador and Haleth, but from such as went not over sea." So there he doesn't specifically identify which house. It's from all
Hmm.
three of those, but not from those who went over to Numenor.
Right.
Then it got changed in the manuscript, from the draft to the manuscript, to "from those same three houses of men, as were the Númenóreans, from Hador the golden-haired, the elf friend maybe, but from such of their sons as went not over the sea into the west, refusing the call." Now, note the absence of the "not from Hador."
Hmm.
It does say, "from those same three houses, as were the Númenóreans, from Hador the golden-haired,"
Right.
whereas the text here says, "not from Hador the golden-haired."
So instead of assuming that they're not from Hador directly, but still maybe
Yeah,
closely related, he's linking them more closely.
a little more closely. He's saying it's from Hador, maybe,
Right.
but from such of their sons as went not over the sea.
Right. The assumption is a positive one instead of a negative one.
Right.
And then Tolkien changed it further from such of their sons to such of his people,
Yeah.
to more closely even connect the Rohirrim not just to all three houses of the Edain, but specifically to Hador.
Right.
And that's because most of his folk had that phenotype. They had the blonde hair and the blue eyes that the Rohirrim do.
Yeah.
And the change from sons to people also addressed kind of a problem in the history, which is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Hador's only direct descendants at the end of the First Age were Elros and Elrond, who clearly were not the ancestors of the Rohirrim.
Well, no, that's obvious. So, yeah, so we go from such of their sons, meaning all three houses, to such of his
Such of
people,
his
meaning
people.
Hador, but not his sons.
Right. So
So,
his family, his people, but
yeah,
not necessarily his direct line.
correct. Now, Christopher Tolkien pointed out that the addition of that "not" in "not from Hador" that's in the final text here was put in very hurriedly, and that the original meaning of that sentence was, quote, "They may be descended from Hador indeed, but if so, then of course from those of Hador's descendants who did not pass over the sea." Now, take that all for what it's worth, but with all this as backdrop, when Hammond and Skull were correcting the text in the 2004 edition, they decided to only remove what they called the obvious error, which was "sons and."
There
So,
you go.
"yet from such of his sons and people," now it's just "yet from such of his people."
Such of his people.
Hmm.
It's amazing what just a few little words can
I know.
completely change in the assumptions we make about them now. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, before we get back to the discussion, we want to make sure you know that when you finish listening to this episode, the talk continues all night long at the Prancing Pony Podcast.
That's right. Our fantastic listener community keeps the conversation going in all of our social media spaces, from our common room on Facebook to our Reddit community, Twitter, and more.
Now, on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast and be sure to follow the page and join the group for some great discussions.
And you can find us on Reddit at r/prancingponypod. And we're also at Prancing Pony Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
And don't forget to check out our brand new podcast, The Rings of Power Wrap-Up. We debuted just last month on February 12th, and we'll be discussing, analyzing, and speculating all about Amazon's television adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth.
That's right. We'll be taking deep dives into the lore behind the show, or the lore that should be behind the show.
Yeah.
We'll talk about our favorite themes and our favorite characters and a whole lot more. So please look for The Rings of Power Wrap-Up and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And check out our social media at Rings Wrap-Up for more.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sean, we're going to go and get back into the text, and I'm going to have you pick up literally where I left off.
All right, so we're picking up from those who refused the call to go into the West. For so we reckon men in our lore, calling them the High, or men of the West, which were Númenóreans, and the Middle Peoples, men of the Twilight, such as are the Rohirrim and their kin that dwell still far in the north, and the Wild, the men of darkness. Yet now, if the Rohirrim are grown in some ways more like to us, enhanced in arts and gentleness, we too have become more like to them, and can scarce claim any longer the title High. We are become middlemen of the Twilight, but with memory of other things. For as the Rohirrim do, we now love war and valor as things good in themselves, both a sport and an end. And though we still hold that a warrior should have more skills and knowledge than only the craft of weapons and slaying, we esteem a warrior none the less above men of other crafts. Such is the need of our days. So even was my brother, Boromir, a man of prowess, and for that he was accounted the best man in Gondor. And very valiant indeed he was. No heir of Minas Tirith has for long years been so hardy in toil, so onward into battle, or blown a mightier note on the great horn. Faramir sighed and fell silent for a while.
Understandably. Well, let's go back to the beginning of that passage. We get this great breakdown of men, right? We get the high men, or men of the West, the Númenóreans.
Mm-hmm.
We get the middle men, the Twilight, that would be the Rohirrim and others like that. And then we get the wild men, or the men of darkness. And that's presumably everybody else that's not at least a middleman, right?
Yeah, that's what it seems like, yeah.
Yeah. And while the Rohirrim have become like the men of the West in some ways, we talked about that. Their lords speak their language. They've sort of taken on some of the Númenórean ways. That process, that assimilation process, cuts both directions. And the men of Gondor have now become more like middlemen. They have a memory of the high, but they're no longer as high as they once were.
Yeah, and he gives examples of why he says this. You know, he says that they now love war and valor as things on their own. And remember, I think it was just last episode, maybe it was the one before that, when he talked about, I don't love the sword for its sharpness. All I love is that which they defend,
Yes.
right?
Oh.
That's what he's talking about here. People who now love war and valor for their own sake.
As an end to itself. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in conjunction with that, now warriors are also held in higher honor than other crafts. And he recognizes that this is partly just the needs of the time. I mean, they are in a Cold War, basically. They need to care about these things.
Yeah,
but
they do.
He does lament this. And he also points out that this is why Boromir was considered the very best of Gondor.
That's right.
In a country that loves warriors for their own sake. A guy who's a really good warrior is going to be considered one of the very best. I mean, that's right. That's totally understandable. And Faramir understands this. He points out that this is for good reason.
Yeah.
And good reason that it was Boromir, too, because nobody in recent memory has been so strong, so skilled in battle, or played the great horn quite like he did.
That's true. Now, Hammond and Skull take a quick sidebar for us on this hardy in toil, onward in battle, and it's worth taking a quick look at. They point out that hardy can mean both bold, courageous, daring, but also vigorous, capable of enduring fatigue or hardship. And then they look at toil and point out that today we think of it as hard and continuous work or exertion, or maybe a spell of severe bodily labor. But there is an obsolete meaning of battle or strife. Now, if we combine these two, Hammond and Skull conclude that so hardy in toil simply means vigorous and tireless when engaged in conflict. I thought that was really interesting.
Wow. I didn't even know that meaning of toil. Yeah. So it's not just his ability to withstand a lot of, difficult,
long, hard working days or the journey to Rivendell, that kind of thing.
Right, exactly, which is what we would generally think it means, but it also means battle specifically. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Some good word nerdery there, man.
I agree. Well, it's Hammond and Skull's word nerdery. I can't take any credit for it.
Well, you found it in there, though.
So onward in battle, real straightforward there. That just means he's always at the front. He's always pushing forward.
Yeah.
That clearly is who Boromir is. We expect nothing less.
Yeah.
And then that mention of the horn, going back just to the last episode or maybe a couple episodes back where he relates the moment where he saw Boromir's body in the boat going by him. That recollection causes Faramir to sigh and be quiet for a bit. Understandably so.
Yeah, understandably so, because now he's remembering his brother's last moments, or at least what he knows of them.
I'm sure he saw that scene in his mind as he mentions those words. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. And that's it for Faramir for a little while here.
Right.
This ends this long foray into the history of Gondor and all of this. And we're going to see Sam get a chance to kind of take the conversation in a new direction. And it's interesting to note, I think worth mentioning here, that, this whole lengthy foray into the history of Gondor and all of that stuff almost got Faramir moved to the appendices, or at least
That's
most
right,
of
it did, yeah.
We're lucky we've got it here in the book.
I'm so glad we did, yes.
Tolkien actually wrote in letter number 66 to Christopher about Faramir how he liked him, but also that he is holding up the catastrophe, by which he means the ending, by a lot of stuff about the history of Gondor and Rohan, with some very sound reflections, no doubt, on martial glory and true glory. But if he goes on much more, a lot of him will have to be removed to the appendices.
I love that. Even Tolkien knows I'm kind of writing this guy a little bit too much, and he's got too much story to tell.
Even he's like, just get to the point, Faramir.
Come on, Faramir, don't belabor this.
Yeah.
I love the rest of that letter. He talks about how the appendices are already where we've had to put so much about tobacco and the hobbits and things like that. Of course, he says appendices there, but that's the stuff he ends up putting in the prologue instead.
That's true. Yeah.
Which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah. Well, now that Faramir's gotten through all of that, Sam's got something he wants to talk about. He's got a new agenda item to put on the table.
Yes, he does. You don't say much in all your tales about the elves, sir, said Sam, suddenly plucking up courage. He had noted that Faramir seemed to refer to elves with reverence, and this, even more than his courtesy and his food and wine, had won Sam's respect and quieted his suspicions. No, indeed, Master Samwise, said Faramir, for I am not learned in elven lore. But there you touch upon another point in which we have changed, declining from Numenor to Middle-earth. For as you may know, if Mithrandir is your companion, and you have spoken with Elrond, the Edain, the fathers of the Númenóreans, fought beside the elves in the first wars, and were rewarded by the gift of the kingdom in the midst of the sea, within sight of Elvenhome. But in Middle-earth, men and elves became estranged in the days of darkness by the arts of the enemy, and by the slow changes of time, in which each kind walked further down their sundered roads. Men now fear and misdoubt the elves, and yet know little of them. And we of Gondor grow like other men, like the men of Rohan. For even they, who are foes of the Dark Lord, shun the elves, and speak of the Golden Wood with dread. I'm going to go ahead and stop right there.
All right.
Yeah. Only because we can't read the whole chapter.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's the truth. But yeah.
All right, so Sam's been paying attention through Faramir's long history lesson and just everything he's been saying. And, one thing Sam has picked up on that's really earned his respect is the way Faramir talks about elves.
Yeah. But he doesn't say much about them, does he?
Doesn't say much about them. He recognized that Faramir referred to them with reverence, but then he's like, you don't really say much about the elves. You got all these tales, but you don't say much about the elves.
That's right. I mean, this goes all the way back, right? You're giving us history for the last, couple thousand years, or at least the last 500 years. Well, Faramir points out that the reason he doesn't say much is because he doesn't know that much about elven lore, but then he does recognize that lack of knowledge is simply another indication of the decline of the men of the West.
Right. But he does know a little bit. He knows a little bit more, again, from the perspective of men. And this is where we get a little bit more history about how the Edain, the three houses of men that we talked about before, the House of Beor, House of Hador, and House of Haleth, how they fought alongside elves in the First Age. And for all their great deeds in the First Age, that's why they were given Numenor. Now, a little bit of word nerdery on Edain. I think we did this all the way back in season 1, but it's been a while and not everybody was with us then. This is actually the Sindarin form of the Quenya word Atani, which means the second people. Singular in Quenya is Atan, A-T-A-N. Sindarin singular is Adan, with a D instead of a T. So the singular forms are much more similar, obviously, related than the two plural forms. Now, in Quenya, Atani originally referred to all men, all human beings.
Hmm.
But the index of names in the Silmarillion tells us that since in Beleriand, for a long time, the only men known to the Noldor and Sindar, that's the elves,
Right.
were those of the three houses of the elf friends, this name, in the Sindarin form Adan, plural Edain,
Hmm.
became specially associated with them, so that it was seldom applied to other men.
That's right.
And so that's how this word that originally meant all human beings gradually became more specific and only applied to this particular group of human beings that were allied
Right.
with the elves.
That's true, because the word did originally mean the second people. So, of course, it
Right.
would refer to all men. Yeah.
Right.
Now, of course, listeners to the PPP know this because you've all read the Silmarillion and listened to season 1 when we got to the War of Wrath and Akadabeth.
Of course.
If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to season 1.
That's right. But going back to the text here, Faramir says, now we've become estranged from the elves.
That's right.
We don't really have any dealings with them anymore. And there are two reasons for this.
Yeah.
Now, the first reason is the arts of the enemy, right?
That's an interesting one.
It is because, well, we talk about the fact that different peoples coming together to fight evil is one of those great things in Tolkien. It's one of the main values of his world is
Yeah, it's a
people
big theme.
kind of
Absolutely.
overcoming their differences to fight evil together. And yet Sauron is always trying to sow discord. And Morgoth before him, really.
That's right. Yeah. Sauron's just doing what his boss did. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And so he's out there sowing distrust. He's out there, probably spreading misinformation.
Mhm.
He's making people scared. We see this all the way back in the First Age, don't we?
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Not only do we have the arts of the enemy as one of the reasons that men have become estranged from the elves, Faramir also mentions the changes that happen over time. And this is where we just want to keep reminding you over and over again. Men, of course, are mortal, more so than ever before, right? I mean, in Numenor, they might have had a 300 or even 400-year lifespan.
Right.
Faramir's not going to live that long.
Right.
Lifespans are more like normal men now. But elves are serially longeval, meaning once they're born, they don't die. I mean, their bodies may die and they get rehoused, but they will then live until the end of the earth, until the end of Arda.
Right. So they've got very different experiences. And
very different experiences.
Men are not going to have the experience of elves.
No.
That they would if they had longer time.
That's right. And because of that difference, you're going to see an estrangement over time, I suspect, just because they don't have those similar experiences, those similar backgrounds anymore.
Right.
So as a result of that estrangement, whether it's more of the arts of the enemy or the changes over time, whatever the case, men simply don't know or trust the elves anymore. And in fact, many of them are afraid of the elves.
That's right. That's right. And this is big. Faramir says even men of Gondor are like that now.
Yeah.
We who are descended from the fathers of the Númenóreans, the ones who fought beside the elves, even
That's
we,
right. The elf friends,
distrust the elves. Even we are afraid of the elves now. We've become more like the middle men.
That's another way that they have sort of descended, if you will. I mean, recall the way that Éomer spoke of Lórien. So, we read that Sam really respects the fact that Faramir speaks of the elves with reverence, but let's compare that to the way Éomer spoke about Lórien, right?
Oh, Éomer spoke of them with suspicion and fear, the sorceress in the golden wood.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about the lady in the golden wood and few escape her nets. Maybe you also are net weavers and sorcerers, maybe. And he gets really...
Yeah, how could you get through there unless you're as bad as she is, basically, is what he's saying.
He does not speak well of the elves.
No.
Very much afraid, you can tell.
Not at all. And yet Faramir says that there are still some who do deal with the elves.
Yeah, in the part that I didn't read, he talks about that. You're right.
Yeah, he says some even go to Lórien in secret.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It suggests that that's not something that people are proud of.
No, or that they are not maybe permitted to do. I don't know.
Maybe so.
But yeah, either way, though, seldom to return, he says. And I've got to ask, what is with seldom to return? Are they disappearing? Are they dying? Do we now have reason maybe to be afraid of the elves? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think that they're just killing people who stray into the woods, but maybe this is one of those fairy things. I don't know.
Maybe it's just the perilous realm.
Yeah, people who wander into the fairy realm, they don't always come out of it. It is an interesting point. Yeah.
Maybe they're just heading off someplace else. I don't want to go back to Gondor now.
Maybe so.
But then what? What are they just
Maybe they go to Rivendell or something.
Wandering. Yeah, maybe. Interesting to think of Gondorian refugees in Rivendell.
Well, I'm thinking a little bit of Bilbo. Bilbo was an ordinary guy, had this encounter with Fairy, and he just couldn't go back home. It just didn't make any sense to live there anymore. I mean, he did for
Maybe.
a long time, but then he decided to leave.
Huh.
And maybe there's a little bit of that going on here too. I don't know.
I'm wondering, we've talked before about, the idea of a mortal getting to the Undying Lands and how they'd burn out, very quickly
Hmm.
in that environment. You wonder if maybe something like that would happen to a mortal going to Lórien. I mean, sure, we don't see that with the Fellowship, but they're not there for that long.
That's true. I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, there's nothing that says that that's not what happens.
Yeah, we have no idea. I mean, what a line, though, right? It's just sort of blink and you miss it, but
It is. I know.
ever and anon one will go in secret to Lórien, seldom to return. Well, no wonder y'all are scared of the elves. The guys that go
Yeah.
don't come
People
back.
just keep disappearing. It's like the Bermuda Triangle, you know?
I don't know. I mean, everything's speculation on this. Let's
It
be
is.
real
It's
clear.
all speculation. And I tend to think that if Tolkien really thought that, mortals burn up in Lórien, like you
We
were
would
talking
know,
about, that
yeah.
he would have said something about it like he did in the Aman and Mortal Men essay.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think there's something. I mean, this is just more of that fairy theme, people who stray into fairy, they're changed forever.
It's true. And there's danger for sure. I mean, it is perilous, right? That
Yeah.
Faramir uses the word, doesn't he? Yeah.
I don't want any part of it. I'm not
No.
going to try it because I think it's perilous to seek out the elves.
Yeah. Yeah. But he does envy their having met Galadriel,
Hmm.
which,
Yeah.
oh man. And Sam, oh Sam.
Boy, this is going to get Sam talking.
I wish that I could have you read all of what Sam says, but I'm going to have you pick up partway through Sam's response to that comment.
All right. Beautiful she is, sir. Lovely. Sometimes like a great tree in flower, sometimes like a white daffodilly, small and slender like. Hard as diamonds, soft as moonlight, warm as sunlight, cold as frost in the stars. Proud and far off as a snow mountain, and as merry as any lass I ever saw with daisies in her hair in springtime. But that's a lot of nonsense and all wide of my mark. Then she must be lovely indeed, said Faramir. Perilously fair. I don't know about perilous, said Sam. It strikes me that folk takes their peril with them into Lórien, and finds it there because they brought it. But perhaps you could call her perilous, because she's so strong in herself. You could dash yourself to pieces on her, like a ship on a rock, or drown yourself like a hobbit in a river. But neither rock nor river would be to blame. Now, He stopped and went red in the face.
Uh-oh.
Yes? Now, Boromir, you would say? Said Faramir. What would you say? He took his peril with him? Yes, sir, begging your pardon, and a fine man as your brother was, if I may say so. But you've been warm on the scent all along. Now I watched Boromir and listened to him, from Rivendell all down the road, looking after my master, as you'll understand, and not meaning any harm to Boromir. And it's my opinion that in Lórien he first saw clearly what I guessed sooner, what he wanted. From the moment he first saw it, he wanted the enemy's ring.
What are you doing, Sam?
No!
This is... Oh, man. I can just see him. The words are just pouring out of his mouth faster than he can even think, right? He's got no filter, Sam.
He's had a few glasses of wine.
He has had some
Let's
wine.
remember that.
And now they're talking about elves. And, the fact is, if you want to get Sam talking, just talk about elves, especially Galadriel.
Yeah, exactly.
Combined with the wine that you mentioned, I suspect it's really loosened him up, which, well,
it has.
Results in an unfortunate consequence here.
It has. And he really does get going by starting to talk about Galadriel. He's really talking her up is what he's doing. He
is, yeah.
I mean, first he actually talks himself down a little bit.
That's true, right.
In the part that I didn't read, he's like, oh, I'm only a hobbit. I'm just a gardener. You really...
Not good at poetry.
They should have brought a poet, basically. Yeah.
Darn it, I knew we needed a bard in the party. Why didn't we roll two warriors when we could have rolled?
Exactly. We needed a bard. And he's thinking, Aragorn or Bilbo could do a better job of, being poetic about her. And then he goes on to do a perfectly wonderful job of it himself.
Absolutely. But he goes back to what he started to say in the first place. He starts by talking about how beautiful she is. And it's all these contrasting things, which I love, right? We get the great tree versus the white daffodil. But tell us a little bit about daffodilly, if you would.
So I looked this up because I was like, daffodilly? Really, Sam?
Come on, Sam.
But believe it or not, this is not just a rustic Gamgeeism. This is
Really?
actually an archaic word. No, it's a real word in English.
I did not know that. That felt so Sam right
It
there.
does feel very
Or
Sam,
very
doesn't it?
hobbity, maybe, yeah.
It is actually in the Oxford English Dictionary as an archaic word for the daffodil. Goes back to 1573 in English.
Wow. Yeah, I never say with 3 syllables, which you could say with, 27.
Right.
Daffodilly, wow.
Daffodil. It's like
That's a heck of a word,
it's
man.
the word daffodil's in there somewhere, but there's a whole lot of other stuff in
Somewhere.
there.
Oh my goodness. Daffodilly fragilistic expialidocious or something. I don't know.
Indeed, even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious.
Boy, that it is. So we get these contrasts, right? The great tree, the white daffodil, the hard
Mhm.
as diamonds, the soft as moonlight. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, warm as sunlight, cold as frost in the stars.
Proud like a mountain, but merry like a lass in springtime. I love that. These are just
Oh,
such great comparisons. Yeah,
they are. They're such wonderful
they
contrasts,
are.
such antitheses, to borrow Humphrey Carpenter's
Yes.
word about
Yeah.
Tolkien himself. And I gotta say, this last bit especially reminds me so much of the Queen of Fairy in Smith of Wootton Major. That's my favorite of Tolkien's non-legendarium stories, right? And anytime I find something in the legendarium that reminds me of Smith, I have to bring in a couple of passages. So
Yeah.
I've got a couple here, and I apologize. This might be kind of a long
No,
read.
don't apologize. You getting to read from Smith is a perfectly fine thing.
Okay, cool. It's kind of a long one, but
Wah. I'm going to cry. You having to read a long thing. And yeah,
fair
come on.
enough.
All
Fair
right,
enough.
go ahead.
As he set foot upon the grass of the vale, he heard elven voices singing, and on a lawn beside a river bright with lilies, he came upon many maidens dancing. The speed and the grace and the ever changing modes of their movements enchanted him, and he stepped forward towards their ring. Then suddenly they stood still, and a young maiden with flowing hair and kilted skirt came out to meet him.
Now, this young maiden scolds Smith for trespassing, right? She basically says, "What would the queen say if she knew you were here?"
Right.
Only later does Smith find out who the young maiden is.
I wonder. I
Yeah,
wonder who she is.
I
Let's find
wonder.
out.
I know.
So, this is a little bit later in the story. He was guided and guarded, but he had little memory of the ways that he had taken, for often he had been blindfolded by mist or by shadow, until at last he came to a high place under a night sky of innumerable stars. There he was brought before the queen herself. She wore no crown and had no throne. She stood there in her majesty and her glory, and all about her was a great host shimmering and glittering like the stars above. But she was taller than the points of their great spears, and upon her head there burned a white flame. She made a sign for him to approach, and trembling he stepped forward. A high, clear trumpet sounded, and behold, they were alone. He stood before her, and he did not kneel in courtesy, for he was dismayed and felt that for one so lowly all gestures were in vain. At length he looked up and beheld her face, and her eyes bent gravely upon him, and he was troubled and amazed, for in that moment he knew her again, the fair maid of the green veil, the dancer at whose feet the flowers sprang.
Oh, what a great passage.
Oh, I got chills just reading it, man.
I know. Oh, I cannot wait till we get to spend a season or at least part of a season going through these non-legendarium works and
Oh
just
yeah,
really digging in and enjoying them. But what a
I
great passage that is.
I can't wait.
And how that works here, right?
It works so well for Galadriel,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Because you
Yeah.
see those same
Those same
contrasts.
contrasts, the hard and soft, the proud and
Yeah.
merry, all of that.
When she reveals herself as the queen, she's this towering, tall, formidable figure.
Oh, yeah.
But the first time Smith met her, she was this beautiful young maiden, very approachable, friendly. It's
Mm.
so yeah. All of these contrasts that we see with the fairy queen or with Galadriel, and yet the thing that Sam really kind of comes back to, and I think Faramir comes back to, is just this beauty, right? And
Yeah,
Faramir recognizes, he seems to kind of just hone in on this. Maybe he knows she's a blonde. I don't know.
maybe.
But he goes right in for, like, yeah, she must be beautiful. And also he recognizes accurately, I think, that this must be a perilous beauty.
That's right. Why wouldn't it be? That would be a
Yeah.
terrifying thing. If she has that many antitheses and you
hmm
are looking at somebody who covers such a spectrum, there's got to be some peril there, especially since she's an elf, right? I mean, this would draw you in, I think, and
hmm
maybe even unwillingly. Sam disagrees, though. He says that the reason people find peril in Lórien is because they bring it in themselves.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in just a moment, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, fair
But,
enough.
he goes on to say, like, yeah, sure, Galadriel is perilous because she's so strong in herself, right?
Yeah.
She's a formidable
She
being,
is definitely
right?
formidable.
She is intimidating and she is
You
powerful.
don't want her on the opposite side, that's for
Right,
sure.
right. And then he gives these really, really wonderful analogies. It says
Yeah.
she's like you could dash yourself to pieces on her like a ship on a rock, or you could drown yourself like you're in a river. But you wouldn't blame the rock or the river. It would be
No.
your own fault for
Right.
getting wrecked on her. And that's such an amazing, I don't know,
Wow.
description to
Yeah.
analogy to use. What do you make of this?
To get wrecked on her or to drown in her. Yeah. You're right. That's a very they're very powerful analogies, and
Yeah,
I do think they point out the danger. A
yeah,
rock where boats go is danger. A
yeah,
river where hobbits are is going to definitely be danger.
yeah,
So there is some peril there. I'm not sure that Sam quite realizes that when he's making those analogies, but he's both proving his point and Faramir's, I think.
yeah.
But he's not blaming her, and I think that's the point. And I don't think Faramir is either. It's just a dangerous situation. There's a perilous.
It's like she's a force of nature. You know,
Yes, that's a good
a,
way of
a
putting it.
rock or a river is a force of nature. And
Yeah.
if you make a mistake
Yeah.
and
No,
you get hurt, those things will kill you. And it's not the force of nature's fault. And Galadriel is somehow a force of nature like that.
yeah.
Now, I'm struck by, I mean, frankly, just like how sensual this analogy is, right? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
dash yourself to pieces on her, drown yourself.
Yeah.
This is not courtly love talk here.
No, you're correct.
There's some interesting stuff going on in Sam's head here. And I think it's
Yeah.
just because she is so beautiful and so intimidating, so
Intimidating
otherworldly.
is a way to put it. Yeah.
And I guess he's just kind of just speaking from the heart on these things that
Mm.
he's felt, but also recognizing that, yeah, she is dangerous.
Well, speaking from the heart might be a tactical error here because he
Well, in
immediately
a
then
moment, yeah.
slips and starts to mention Boromir's name. Ah, the wine. Ah, the wine.
Hmm.
And when he does start to mention it, and you can just see him now, he's almost talking too fast, right? You could dash yourself to pieces on her like a ship on a rock, or drown yourself like a hobbit in a
Yeah.
river, but neither rock nor river would be to blame. Now, Boromir, oh crap,
Yeah. It's like, oh no.
you know,
Oh.
did I just say that?
It's like, it's like,
Bora, Bora,
it's like
Bora,
Hagrid from Harry Potter. Like, oh, you shouldn't have
I
said
shouldn't
that.
have said that. Oh, Hagrid.
Yep.
Yes. Faramir finishes Sam's sentence for him and asks, "Oh, Boromir, is that what you were going to say? Boromir?
Go on.
Go on, please.
Yeah.
Take his peril with him." And Sam, not thinking, at least not thinking well enough about how he's already messed up, messes it up worse. Much, much worse.
He does, because I think Sam knows full well that Boromir did take his peril with
Yes, he
him.
does. Yeah.
He came into Lórien with some seed in there that
Yeah.
he didn't even recognize in himself, is basically what Sam says. Well, I'm getting
Mm,
ahead of myself, because he actually starts with a compliment about
right.
Boromir. He's trying to back it up a little bit. Like, no, he was a fine man, if I
That's
may say
right.
so. Good
Yeah, yeah.
guy. He's cool,
Yeah, it's a far cry from if you think Frodo murdered this Boromir fellow.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
It's
man,
like,
that's a great
it's
moment.
like, oh, now he's a fine man, really,
That's
not
right.
just this
Yeah,
Boromir.
this Boromir fellow.
But then he points out that, look, I had been watching and listening to Boromir from the moment we left Rivendell.
I'm always watching you, Boromir. Always
Yep.
watching.
Yep.
But of course, only because it's his job to look after Frodo. I'm not,
Right.
Boromir's a good guy. He's a fine man, if I may say so. But I had to watch him because I'm looking out for Frodo.
Of
Yeah,
course. And that's understandable. He's absolutely right to do that.
of course.
And he saw something in Boromir. And then, of course, he's just going to proudly
Blurt
and
it out.
rashly just blurt out what it was he saw. Oh, God, don't do it.
No, don't.
But he does.
He does.
Yeah. You know what he wanted? Boromir wanted the enemy's ring.
Oh, Sam, what is wrong with you? So, yeah, Frodo has a reaction, but I'm going to pick up actually at Sam.
Yeah.
Save me, said Sam, turning white and then flushing scarlet. I might add, too late,
It's
man.
too late for that.
Too late. There I go again. Whenever you open your big mouth, you put your foot in it, the gaffer used to say to me, and right enough. Oh dear, oh dear. Now look here, sir. He turned, facing up to Faramir with all the courage that he could muster. Don't you go taking advantage of my master because his servants know better than a fool. You've spoken very handsome all along, put me off my guard, talking of elves and all. But handsome is as handsome does, we say. Now's a chance to show your quality. So it seems, said Faramir, slowly and very softly, with a strange smile. So that is the answer to all the riddles. The one ring that was thought to have perished from the world. And Boromir tried to take it by force, and you escaped, and ran all the way to me. And here in the wild I have you. 2 halflings and a host of men at my call, and the ring of rings. A pretty stroke of fortune. A chance for Faramir, captain of Gondor, to show his quality. Ha! He stood up, very tall and stern, his gray eyes glinting. Frodo and Sam sprang from their stools and set themselves side by side with their backs to the wall, fumbling for their sword hilts. There was a silence. All the men in the cave stopped talking and looked towards them in wonder.
Oh, Sam, you done it now.
Yeah, Sam, come on, man.
Sam! Come on, Sam.
Ah.
All right.
Yeah, but also a little Frodo, too, I gotta say.
Oh, we do have one little bit of Frodo you skipped.
Mm-hmm.
With Frodo reacts a little bit. I mean, this is too little too late.
Oh,
really.
way too little too late. He should have seen this coming.
He was just kind of like, he was kind of nodding off. He was deep in his own thoughts.
It's been a long day, like we said.
He's tired, man.
Yeah. As we'll see at the end of this chapter when he flat out collapses unconscious. Yeah.
It's been a really long day, and he's just kind of like, he's zoning out, he's probably just, thinking, oh, I got a stomachache, I ate too much food, whatever it is. He's not paying attention to the conversation.
Because he could have seen this coming.
He could have seen this coming. He could have been like, wait, no, careful, Sam.
Sam, shut up,
but
Sam.
But he didn't. And like we so often do, he suddenly hears the enemy's ring, capital E, capital R. Oh. You're like, oh, no.
No, not a good time. Not a good time to mention this at all. There was another time in the story, though, where a little alcohol and inattention nearly caused Frodo no end of trouble, but he was the one who stepped in it, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Think back to the Prancing Pony, when Pippin had been telling tales of the Shire to the folks in the common room, and he was talking about Bilbo's birthday party, and that got Frodo really worried. In fact, it got Aragorn a little worried and telling Frodo, you better do something.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of doing the smart thing and saying, Pippin, I need you to wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he jumps on the table and starts to sing in order to keep the name of Baggins, let alone the ring, out of the conversation. I guess that'll do the trick.
That will do the trick. I mean, I don't know that it's the right kind of attention, but
it might have been a bit too much. Yeah,
a bit too much. So back to this moment here.
Yeah,
Frodo reacts, and then Sam suddenly realizes what he's done.
Oh yeah.
He reacts too. He goes pale first. He blushes. Save me. He says, like, ain't nobody saving you now, man.
That's too late for that.
It's too late. So he goes pale, then he blushes. Then he gives us more of the gaffer's abuse. Whenever you open your big mouth, you put your foot in it. I love this spin on the idea of putting your foot in your mouth.
I do too. Really cool. It is a treasure from the always loving, incredibly gentle, kind, and great advice from Gaffer's Word Horde. Yeah.
Father of the Year, Gaffer Gamgee. Thank you, sir. But then, Sam recovers quickly. This is to his credit, right?
He does. You're right. Very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, he kind of gets it together and he knows he's messed up, but he also has gotten to know Faramir a little bit here. And
he has.
Sam believes that if, Faramir is actually who he says he is, then he will do the right thing here. At least that's what he's hoping.
That's right. And he faces off with him like he did at the very beginning of this chapter, right? As the trial attorney there. Now, don't be giving Frodo any sauce just because I blew it,
Right.
It's just... He makes a point, though, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean, he points out that, look, Faramir's been speaking handsomely. He's been talking of elves.
Get me to trust you and all that. That's right.
Well, that's just it. I mean, if you want Sam's trust, speak well of elves, right? I mean, that is a mark of high honor for Sam.
Yeah, it really is. In fact, I was thinking about this as I was preparing for the discussion tonight. That might be yet another reason why Sam distrusts Gollum, because of how much Gollum seems to detest the elves.
That could be.
It's just another sign that Gollum is completely corrupt and unredeemable in Sam's
mind. That could
be,
because, we know how highly Sam thinks of elves. Think back to chapter 3 of Fellowship of the Ring when he first encountered them. And maybe it is like, if you can't understand how elves are like the greatest thing in the world, then
Right.
what is wrong with you? What does that say about you?
Right. Your perception of elves speaks more about your character than anything else. Yeah.
Definitely.
So Sam eventually gets around to the great phrase about handsome is as handsome does, and now it's time to show your quality. That's a game show that didn't last very long.
Show your quality? No, it didn't last long because everybody who lost got corrupted.
That's right.
This is a tense moment.
It is, isn't it?
And Faramir really milks it for all it's worth.
He does. I know.
he's-
He is not playing around. He could have just been like, oh, don't you worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're good. Immediately. No, he does not do that.
I mean, we're all waiting for his decision here.
Uh,
Stage is set, but we see him like speaking very slowly, softly, with a strange smile. That's not foreboding at all.
Not at all, at all. And I love that alliteration, by the way. Slowly and softly with a strange smile. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now he understands the answer to the riddle, right?
That's right.
The one ring that we all thought was gone is Isildur's bane.
That's correct. As perceptive as he is, he'd never thought about the one ring being Isildur's bane because the ring is gone.
Yeah. Thought it wasn't a factor anymore.
Yeah. It's not even an option. So, you might think, well, how could Faramir not have guessed about the ring? Well, because simply put, he didn't think it existed anymore.
Right.
So, yeah. But next he draws a conclusion, not based on anything that Sam or Frodo actually said. I mean, yes, based on what they said, but Sam and Frodo never said he tried to take it by force.
They never said that he did this, right?
But it's certainly the logical conclusion. He draws this logical conclusion that Boromir must have tried to take it by force and that they escaped instead.
And again, he knows his brother.
He does. He does.
The good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then he draws out the chain of events from Boromir's attempt to take the ring to what got them here today.
Right.
And then he makes it clear that it's like, this is interesting, isn't it? Because now, with this host of men, I could actually accomplish what Boromir could not. I could take the Ring of Rings.
Ooh.
Is that the only time it's called that?
I think so. I was about to
is.
do a quick search because I love that phrase and we've not seen it called that before.
Yeah.
The Ring of Rings. I'm doing a quick search in the text of The Lord of the Rings to see if we get that phrase anyplace else. And no, that does appear to be it.
It's the most ringy ring that exists among all rings.
It's the ringiest ring.
The ringiest ring of all rings.
It's the ringingest ring of them
the
all.
rings.
Of all of the rings and the 9 of the rings and the 7 rings.
All right.
5.
Wrong season. Come on.
I know. There are no 5, by the way. I was just counting down.
No. But yeah, I mean, I could actually do this now.
Yeah.
Isn't this interesting?
Pretty terrifying, actually. I love the way he, like you said, he milks this.
Mm-hmm.
He could have said from the very get-go, oh, don't worry about it. But he's like, and here I have you. A host of men, the Ring of Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a chance for me to do something that Boromir couldn't do.
My brother couldn't do. My brother, the best of all Gondorians, couldn't do.
He was the best? And it's interesting because when you know more about his relationship with Denethor, this really could be a tempting moment, isn't it? But
it very well could be.
Yeah. Now he repeats Sam's line. Oh, it's a chance to show my quality. And he stands up. Wow, that really, now we're really amping up the tension, right?
Yeah, that's intimidating.
Frodo and Sam jump up in response. They stand backs to the wall. They're fumbling for their swords. In their minds, this is it. This is it.
Yeah, we're going to have to fight, and this is not going to go well.
No, it's not. There's 200 men or so in this room,
right.
And if you fight Faramir, they're going to take you down.
And then, just like the saloon in a Western movie, like the silence falls, right? Silence in the entire room. And all the men stop talking and look over at them.
Yeah.
And, oh no, this is not going to go well.
The moment hangs in the air, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm, it does.
Frodo and Sam are terrified, and we're just waiting to see what Faramir decides. Dum, dum, dum.
And that's where we're going to close today's episode, folks.
No, we're going to finish off this entire chapter, and I'm going to let you pick up
fine.
Right after that.
All right. But Faramir sat down again in his chair and began to laugh quietly, and then suddenly became grave again. Alas for Boromir, it was too sore a trial, he said. How you have increased my sorrow, you two strange wanderers from a far country, bearing the peril of men. But you are less judges of men than I of halflings. We are truth speakers, we men of Gondor. We boast seldom, and then perform or die in the attempt. Not if I found it on the highway would I take it, I said. Even if I were such a man as to desire this thing, and even though I knew not clearly what this thing was when I spoke, still I should take those words as a vow and be held by them. But I am not such a man, or I am wise enough to know that there are some perils from which a man must flee. Sit at peace, and be comforted, Samwise. If you seem to have stumbled, think that it was fated to be so. Your heart is shrewd as well as faithful, and saw clearer than your eyes.
Mm.
For strange though it may seem, it was safe to declare this to me. It may even help the master that you love. It shall turn to his good if it is in my power. So be comforted. But do not even name this thing again aloud. Once is enough.
Once was actually more than enough.
Once was more than enough.
All right, so going back to the passage, the beginning of the passage that you read, Faramir sits down again and laughs quietly before becoming suddenly silent. That's not also disturbing, is it?
Nope, not
But
at all.
consider, though, he's just faced and defeated a temptation, hasn't he?
He absolutely has. And it's a temptation that others before him, like Aragorn and Galadriel and even Gandalf, have faced and managed to endure successfully.
That's right. But then he realizes, and you know this is what's caused him to suddenly go quiet, that Boromir was faced with that same temptation, but that he succumbed. And
he did.
This has made Faramir deeply sad. You know, Frodo and Sam have increased his sorrow.
Yeah, because now he knows. I mean, again, we've seen the deductive powers of this guy.
Yeah.
He's put all the pieces together, and he sees with painful clarity what it is that Boromir must have done to bring them here, and how Boromir was ultimately defeated by this temptation. He was tried and he failed, and it was too sore a trial indeed. Absolutely.
That makes me hopeful, though, for Faramir's eventual conversation with Aragorn and Gandalf, who can then point out the victory that Boromir won.
Yeah.
I don't think we see that conversation, but boy, that must really warm Faramir's heart to hear what he did to redeem himself.
I'm sure. I'm sure it does. Because he did win in the end.
That's right.
But he did fail this test.
Yeah,
Boy, did he fail it.
Boy, badly, yeah.
And I think, what helps Faramir pass it is, among other things, his honor, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. His determination to keep his word, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He said, I said I was going to do this. I said that I wouldn't take this thing.
Yeah.
And I won't.
Nope.
And then he chastises them a little bit. He's like, look, I'm clearly a better judge of hobbits than you are of men.
That's right.
Because, like I told you, we are truth speakers. We don't boast a lot, but when we do, we either perform or we die in the attempt.
Yeah, it's that simple. We do not go back on that. And that's when he reiterates his earlier claim, even if I found it on the highway, I wouldn't pick it up.
Right.
Then he says something interesting. He says, even if I wanted this thing, even though I didn't know what it was when I made that statement, I take those words as a vow. I cannot break it.
Absolutely. And that is so important because this is a real man of honor.
Yeah, it is.
It's not like, when I said that, I didn't know what I was talking. None of that stuff.
The contractual terms no longer apply because, of course, these were unknown facts at the time.
Yes,
blah, blah, blah.
This was the identity of the object was not disclosed to me. And it's not that. He's not looking for excuses. He's not trying to get out of his words.
No.
I said I would not want to take it, and that was a vow, and I will not break that vow.
That's absolutely right.
But then he says something which is even more amazing.
Yeah.
Because he says, look, even if I was the kind of person who wanted this thing, I would hold to that vow. But you know what? I'm not even the kind of man who wants this thing anyway.
That was interesting.
I don't want it to begin with.
That's right. Or at least he's wise enough to know that it's a peril to flee from, right? I'm going back, let's see, a few episodes when he described this thing, when he didn't know what it was, as an heirloom of power and peril.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, we talked about how both he and Boromir recognized that it was a mighty thing of power, but that it was Faramir's recognition of its peril, before he even knew what it was, that was an indication of his wisdom above and beyond Boromir's. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But boy, to say I'm not the kind of man who'd want this thing anyway, it sort of shoots holes in the premise that I think we see in the movies, which is that all men are weak and would want this ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why they had to go the route they did with Film Faramir.
Right. Absolutely. They kind of wrote themselves into that corner with Faramir, and with movies. I mean, they're looking for each character to have an arc, and they're looking for Faramir to start out flawed and then learn. And in a certain sense, I can see how it was
Yeah,
satisfying to people
cinematically.
who didn't know the book because, oh, Faramir makes the same mistake as his brother and then he learns better. He
Yeah,
ends up learning in a way Boromir did not. But
fair.
for those of us who love the books, that is not the Faramir we know because the Faramir we know
No.
from the books is he's better than other men.
Right. He really truly is, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a character who's simply better than everybody else.
No, there's
It may
not.
not be realistic in some ways, right? We may argue that, but those people still exist.
Yeah, they do. There are truly good people in the world.
There are people who are men of their word and women of their word,
Absolutely.
for that matter. Yeah.
Absolutely. May not be a lot of them, but
No.
there are some. And isn't it nice to read about one sometimes?
Yes, it really is. Even if it's merely inspirational or
Yeah.
aspirational, as the case may be.
Yeah. That's what's so wonderful about Faramir.
Yeah, I agree.
So going back to the book, Faramir tells them, sit at peace.
Hmm.
It's okay, Sam. He
Yeah.
specifically tells him you can take comfort.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even your blurting this out was fated. I love this.
I do
This is
too.
a fate versus free will moment, I think.
It really is.
Sam maybe didn't intend to say this.
No, I don't think he did. It's fair to say Frodo didn't intend for him to say
He
it.
certainly
Yeah.
did not. But you know what? Maybe Sam acted on his free will in a way that led him to this point, and then fate kind of took over, right? Fate made him blurt this out. I mean, something in him wanted to
Mhm.
say this when he said it. He may not have been thinking clearly when he did so, but
You're right.
he did make a decision to say it.
You're right, and I think that's where we get this next line that I absolutely love. Your heart saw clearer than your eyes.
Yeah.
This is a moment where your rational thought process versus your emotional thought process. This is good that
Hmm.
you are the emotional core of the story here, Sam. It's good that
Yeah.
you allowed this to come out and your heart saw that. And that's one of the reasons why this got blurted out. And the reason why that's a good thing is it's safe to say that to me here. It's actually going to help Frodo. And I love this line too. Faramir recognizes, sees the love that Sam has for Frodo. It's not just, oh, I'm going to help you fulfill your duty to your master. It's going to help the master that you love. He sees that
That's right.
in
Yeah,
Sam.
he sees the love there. Yeah.
Yeah,
And he says, in fact, if I can help it, my knowing this now will actually be for Frodo's good. I
that's
will
right.
I will turn this to good if I can. And this is a Spabimi moment.
Oh, it is.
This is a huge mistake by Sam. A horrible error of judgment in most circumstances, but here it's going to turn to good.
Yes, it will. Yeah, absolutely.
But for now, just keep your mouth shut about it because we're not going to talk about it again.
Yeah, once is enough.
We're
That's
all on
right.
the same page. I know what you know now, or I know enough.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about it
And in
anymore.
fact, I don't want to know anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Don't say any more.
Yeah, he doesn't want any more spoilers.
And then you are going to take us to our last couple of passages. We're going to kind of split this up a little
Yeah.
bit, but you're going to pick it up, about a paragraph ahead?
That's correct. And yeah, I am going to split this up because as much as I'd like to read to the end of the chapter, we do have to skip some bits.
Yep.
Well, Frodo, now at last we understand one another, said Faramir. If you took this thing on yourself, unwilling at others' asking, then you have pity and honor from me. And I marvel at you to keep it hid and not to use it. You are a new people and a new world to me. Are all your kin of like sort? Your land must be a realm of peace and content, and there must gardeners be in high honor. Not all is well there, said Frodo, but certainly gardeners are honored. But folk must grow weary there, even in their gardens, as do all things under the sun of this world. And you are far from home, and wayworn. No more tonight. Sleep, both of you, in peace if you can. Fear not, I do not wish to see it, or touch it, or know more of it than I know, which is enough, lest peril perchance waylay me, and I fall lower in the test than Frodo, son of Drogo. I'm going to go ahead and skip a little bit. This is when Sam's now talking to him. Good night, Captain, my lord, he said. You took the chance, sir. Did I so? Said Faramir. Yes, sir, and showed your quality, the very highest. Faramir smiled. A pert servant, Master Samwise. But nay, the praise of the praiseworthy is above all rewards. Yet there was naught in this to praise. I had no lure or desire to do other than I have done. Oh, well, sir, said Sam, you said my master had an elvish air, and that was good and true. But I can say this, you have an air too, sir, that reminds me of well, Gandalf, of wizards. Maybe, said Faramir. Maybe you discern from far away the air of Numenor. Good night. All right, let's go back to the beginning of that passage as well as the part that I skipped. We'll discuss all of this, of course.
Yes. All right. Well, Faramir has shown us he's not like Boromir, and with that brotherly bullet dodged, the hobbits
Yeah,
go back to their seats quietly.
that's right.
The rest of the men get back to their business. They just figure, oh, Faramir must have been having some kind of joke with the hobbits.
Which speaks a little bit of what kind of guy they think Faramir is. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't take himself too seriously. He must be
Right.
the kind of guy who, likes to have fun with people.
Maybe not milk it quite as much. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
A whole host of men in the
he
Ring
likes
of
to,
Rings.
right. He likes to intimidate people.
That's
This
pretty
is how he
funny.
jokes with people. I'm going to kill you
I'm going
and
to
take your
take your
jewelry.
things, right?
Yeah. But, still.
So Faramir has some reassuring words for Frodo. Look, we understand each other now. And he sees that Frodo did this against his desire, right? I mean, it isn't what he wanted to do, it's what he chose to do. And that he did it for the sake of others. And that makes it worth both pity and honor.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I noticed that Faramir uses the word unwilling, which is a little bit farther than I would go. I mean, Frodo wasn't unwilling, right?
That's true. No, I guess I see that more as like against his will is also a strong word. It wasn't his original choice.
You said it right. It was against his desire for sure. It's not
Yeah.
like he was just jumping up and down.
I'm thinking of the way we say will in that sort of archaic sense, that I would that this thing had happened.
Yeah, like something you wish for or you want to happen.
Yeah.
I see that. I can see where you
I
get
think
there.
that might be what he means when he says unwilling here, because certainly he's not like a prisoner being forced to
Well, that's just it. It's not like he was forced
we've
to
got
do it.
Bilbo here in Rivendell, Frodo, and if you don't take this ring, we're gonna break his legs.
Yeah.
That's not
Maybe that's how he means it. I saw it more like that, like,
Yeah.
you did this unwillingly, like other people made you do it. That's not entirely right, but the point you made is the right point. He sees that Frodo did this against his desire and that actually is a noble thing.
It's not what he wanted to do. He never looked for a way to do this, right?
And he's also surprised,
Yeah.
not only that he would do it, even though he doesn't want to, he's also surprised that, and you haven't used it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a mighty weapon, and all of these
Yeah.
adventures that you've had, and now he knows almost everything that's happened since they left Rivendell.
Yeah.
You've never used it? Wow.
You kept it hidden all this time and you haven't used it. And then this leads him to ask, I guess, the obvious question,
Yeah.
look, look, I don't really know hobbits. You are a new people in a new world, but are all hobbits like this? Are
Wow.
all your kin of like sort?
Of like sort.
Yeah.
What, like extraordinarily noble and self-sacrificing and willing to take on tasks that nobody else is willing to touch? I don't know. What does he mean by that?
If that's how he means it, then the answer is clearly no.
Well, no.
But
I can't imagine Odo Proudfoot taking the ring to
No.
Mordor. Yeah.
Ted Sandyman, no. that's
No,
not
definitely
happening.
not. No.
I think that is what he means, though.
And I can imagine the choice words that the gaffer would have for somebody who asked him.
Yeah, no kidding. I actually did look up this use of the word sort in the Oxford English Dictionary. And,
Oh,
there
okay.
is a usage of it in Chaucer that says it's with special reference to character, disposition, or rank. So,
okay.
I mean, I do think he's talking about like this,
Yeah.
like you said, like this nobility, this strength of character. Are all hobbits like this?
Well, I think the rest of his phrase sort of implies that, right? I mean, he says
Yeah.
that if they are, well, the Shire must be a peaceful and contented land
Yeah.
because you're filled with all good people.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's interesting because we know that the Shire is peaceful and generally contented, but they're not all like Frodo, are they?
Well, no.
There's not too many Frodos there. That's very interesting. The Shire is a peaceful land despite the fact that it's
Yeah. That's a
people
good
are
way of putting it.
rustic and kind of unaware of the things that go on. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's why it's peaceful and
Blissfully naive,
contented. Yeah, they're naive. And then he's got this great line about, there must gardeners be in high honor.
I love that.
That is super cool.
I mean, you can kind of tell he's saying it with a little bit of tongue in cheek, but I think what his point is that
so.
you would even hold somebody who's maybe has a humble origin.
Somebody who's a blue collar worker, right?
Right.
Somebody who's just, yeah. And Frodo agrees with this last bit. Like, yeah, gardeners are honored there.
Yeah.
We love things that grow. We respect our gardeners. But he does confess, it's not perfect. Not all is well there. And I think he recognizes that it's not. I think he recognizes, no, not all hobbits are like me. I don't even want to be like me. But
I would
here I
prefer
am.
not to be like this. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Faramir would undoubtedly like to know more, but he realizes how tired Frodo and Sam have got to be, right? We talked about this earlier tonight. this has been a really, really, really long day for them.
Yeah, yeah.
And not only that, but of course, they're far from home. They've traveled an incredibly long way. They are exhausted.
Yeah. So, mercifully, he says, "Look, let's be done for tonight. Sleep in peace. Don't be afraid. You're safe with me." And he says, "Look, I don't want anything to do with it either."
That's right. I don't want to see it. I don't want to touch it. I don't even want to know more about it. It is perilous.
Hmm.
Let's face it, he knows he's passed one test. He doesn't want to face another and fail it.
Yeah, no, this is not Galahad going back into the castle like, "Let me have just a little bit
Just
of
a little
peril."
bit
Like,
of peril?
yeah, this is
No.
not that.
No, this is definitely not that. Wow, that's great. Brilliant.
No, just keep it away from me.
Yeah.
But before we sleep, there's one last thing I want to know, and that's, where do you want to go, and
Yeah.
what do you aim to do?
It's a good question.
And, Frodo goes through just a range of emotions here, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's fear, there's weariness, there's resignation.
Yeah, he does. He sort of goes through that process. He starts out
Hmm.
terrified, then he just realizes how tired he is and finally just gives up. And he tells him in full detail, I'm going to go to Mordor. Specifically, I'm going to Gorgoroth to find Mount Doom and throw this stupid thing into the fire because that's what Gandalf said.
Yeah. And then he confesses that he doesn't think he'll succeed.
That's right. Yeah,
This is huge. I mean,
it
Faramir
is.
is stunned into silence. And I think it's
Yeah.
by all of this information. Like,
You're going to do what? You're going to go
and you're
where?
you're gonna do how? You're gonna do it how? And you don't
Wow.
think you're gonna succeed? I mean,
But you're
this
going to do it
is
anyway?
but
Yeah.
you're gonna do it anyway. Yeah. He is stunned.
Yeah, he is. But before he has a chance to say anything,
Yeah.
Frodo just collapses. He is done.
Yeah.
Absolutely done. Faramir catches him. I love this. Such a tender moment, right? He carries him to his bed. He covers him while he falls asleep. So tender.
Yeah. And then he gets a little moment alone with Sam and they're
Yeah.
talking. And
Yeah.
Sam, I kind of love this moment. Sam shows him tremendous respect.
Yeah, he does.
He says, "Good night, Captain, my lord." Not just one term of
Yes.
respect, but two terms of respect.
And not just his title, but he's not really Sam's lord, right?
No, that's true. He's
You
not.
know, captain is appropriate. That's just like,
Yeah, because he is a captain.
because
He's
he's a captain.
objectively a
So
captain. Yeah.
call him by his title. But my lord really shows a level of respect that
Yeah.
Sam has for him at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then Sam commends him for taking the chance. You
that's right.
faced the temptation
Mhm.
and you showed your quality, the very
The
highest.
very highest. What a great line from Sam.
Yeah.
And Faramir, interestingly, he refers to him as a pert servant. And I have to say, of course, I've always thought of pert as meaning like attractive, maybe cute, like attractive in a cheeky way.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but it's really another way to say impudent. I didn't know that, but the
Hmm.
OED says that
Okay.
it's forward in speech and behavior, unbecomingly ready to express an opinion. I never thought of us as
Interesting.
exactly pert, but if unbecomingly ready to express an opinion fits, then I guess so. Yeah.
That's interesting. So that's what he means here.
Pert.
Is like,
That's what
Sam,
he means
yeah,
here.
you're candid.
Too candid, arguably. Yeah. Unbecomingly ready to express an
Yeah,
opinion. Yeah.
unbecoming. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. A little impudent, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And then he takes back the little joke and then he gives us another great Faramir
Oh,
line.
doesn't he?
He says, and I do love this line, "The praise of the praiseworthy is above all rewards."
Yes. That is such a great line.
So wonderful.
Brilliant.
As you would expect after a line like that, because, basically what he's saying is like, look, that's wonderful of you to say, but I praise you. You
Yeah.
are a wonderful person, Samwise.
That's right.
And then humbly, he deflects the praise that Sam has given him. He's
Yeah.
like, I didn't do anything great. I didn't want to do anything other than exactly what I did.
That's right. Which makes me wonder, and I want to talk about this just real briefly. It appears that he wasn't really tempted the same way that Boromir was, or even the same way that maybe Aragorn or Gandalf was. If this is really what he wanted to do,
I wondered about that too. And I wonder if it's just because, I mean, he could just be deflecting, he could
yeah,
just
he
be
could be
like
downplaying what he
downplaying it.
faced.
It's not a big deal. Or it could just be that his honor is really just such a strong influence in his life
Yeah,
that
yeah,
he really holds to that. I do think he must have faced a moment of temptation, but
there
I
had to
think
have been.
he's got a moral code that steered him through. And I think isn't that what morality is?
Yeah, I
Like,
guess you're right.
it's like, you're going to be tempted. Everybody's going to be tempted in life sometimes. It's what we do in those moments and whether we
Hmm,
have that moral compass to steer us through. And I think
that's a good point.
that's what Faramir does, and that's why he survives the temptation. But I think he's kind of downplaying it a little bit.
I think you're right. I mean, he had to have faced some temptation. We talked about this with Aragorn, right? How tempted really was Aragorn at that moment in the books? Because we talked about maybe how he'd kind of already steeled himself and prepared
Yeah,
for facing this temptation, and therefore it wasn't as overwhelming as it was for, let's say, Boromir.
right.
Now, Faramir didn't have the opportunity to prepare himself to face the temptation the way Aragorn might, but he certainly had his honor, as you say, as the thing to fall back on. When he's faced with this, yeah, he's tempted in the sense that he's faced with a temptation, but how tempting was it? And it's not that tempting because what he really wants isn't the ring. What he really wants is
Right.
to keep his word.
I think that's exactly it.
That
And so,
desire is bigger than the
yeah,
other desire.
right. That's exactly right. And so when he says, I had no lure or desire to do other than I have done, it doesn't mean that I didn't face any temptation. It just
Right.
means that there's a stronger desire that's driving me. I think
Yeah.
that's absolutely it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to think of temptation as being some overwhelming thing
Right.
where we have to fight it. And here, I think Faramir didn't have to fight all that hard because all he needed to do was look at the fact that what he wanted more than anything was to do what he's always done, which is keep his word.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then Sam makes this really amazing observation. He says, well, you said Frodo had an elvish air.
Hmm.
I think you've got an air of wizards.
An air of wizards. I love that.
Yeah. And Faramir's right. Frodo does have an elvish air, right? Because
That's
he's
right.
an
We
elf
talked
friend.
about that. Yeah.
And I guess Sam is observing here that Faramir has this
Wizardy.
air of wizards. Maybe he's observing the wizard's pupil.
Yeah, maybe. Faramir suggests, though, that maybe not so much air of wizards as it's a little of that Númenórean air.
Could be.
And, the two are not entirely unrelated,
True. Yeah.
but yeah.
They're both ennoblement, right?
Yes, they are.
They're both signs of ennoblement. But let's admit that this is not the first Númenórean that Sam has encountered.
That's
And
true.
Boromir did not have this air.
No.
So there is something special about Faramir.
And Aragorn is descended from the Númenóreans as well,
Mhm.
so he's got a little bit of that air too.
Mm-hmm.
But Faramir has something different than either of them.
Yep.
And Sam picks up on it. So Frodo has an elvish air. Faramir has an air of wizards, or perhaps Númenor. Barlaman has an air of ale and pipe tobacco. Sean, what did Barlaman bring in the bag for us tonight?
I don't even want to know what kind of air you have after
Oh.
being in your booth for the last
No.
couple of hours.
You did not just go there.
I did.
Wow, brutal.
Come on, I'm in here too. It's stuffy in here. Anyway,
It's a little warm sometimes, yeah.
it is a little warm sometimes. Anyway, we talked recently about the meanings of the names of Faramir and Boromir.
Right.
So I think it's a good time to bring in this question from Ben M.
Okay.
Ben says, I am in my first read through of the Silmarillion, and it's going great with the help of your podcast. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you very
But
much.
I have a question on the meanings of names. In the chapter of Maiglin, it mentions Eöl giving him his name when he was 12, and that his name, Maiglin, means sharp glance. Ben says, how would this work within a language? We are technically reading a translation of the elf tongue, where some words are in Cinder and Aquenya, like names or in places, but the rest is in English. When elves would say his name, would they literally be saying, good evening, sharp glance? Or does this mean something else?
What up, sharp glance? Yeah.
What up, sharp glance? How would this work in modern day, Ben says? If I wanted to name my child something that meant something else, would I go back to Old English? Or would my son's name be Melodious Voice?
Oh.
Nevertheless, Ben says, I'd love some insight on naming someone a name that means something else.
That is a good one. What an interesting question. Well, let's start out with this. Ben is right. Maiglin's name means sharp glance, and we know that because it says so in the Silmarillion, chapter 16, where we read, And Aradel bore to Eöl a son in the shadows of Nan Elmoth, and in her heart she gave him a name in the forbidden tongue of the Noldor, Lomion, that signifies child of the twilight. But his father gave him no name until he was 12 years old. Apparently just call him, hey boy, hey you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then he called him Maiglin, which is sharp glance, for he perceived that the eyes of his son were more piercing than his own, and his thought could read the secrets of hearts beyond the mist of words. Now,
Yep.
We're told in the appendix that this name is made up of two elements. Maeg, that's M-A-E-G, and it means sharp or piercing, and glin, which means gleam, particularly applied to the eyes, which is apparently translated here as glance.
That's right. And although Maiglin's name only retains one G in the middle, it's not Maiglin with two Gs, one at the end of one word and another at the beginning of the next. But still, those two elements are still going to be clearly recognizable to any Sindarin speaker.
Oh, yeah.
Maiglin's name is going to have what we would call semantic meaning. It's not
Right.
just a series of random sounds. Any Sindarin speaker hearing that name is going to think sharp glance.
Because to them, that's exactly what it says. Yeah.
That's exactly what it says. Just like when we hear a name that has semantic meaning in a language we can speak, like Proudfoot
Yeah.
or, I don't know, Skywalker.
That's a really great example, actually. Sure, anybody who understands the language that the name came from is going to hear those sounds and understand the meaning. Which means, sadly, that Faramir, who speaks Sindarin, for example, is constantly hearing people call him, "Hey, Sufficient Jewel," which has got to sting a little bit.
It has got to sting a little bit.
"Captain Sufficient Jewel, the orcs are dead."
Especially when his brother is Captain Steadfast Jewel. Now, this all seems pretty strange to us in the modern Western world, where a lot of our given names come from ancient languages that aren't spoken anymore, or at least are not spoken by the people who are named these things.
That's fair, yeah.
A lot of names, even among English speakers, come from Latin or Greek or Hebrew or Old English, which we'll get to. I mean, my first name is an English phonetic spelling of an Irish adoption of a French variant of a Hebrew name.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Sean is a form of John. So it literally in Hebrew means God is gracious. But
Wow.
if somebody called, "Hey, God is gracious," across a crowded room, I would never respond to that
No, that's not your name, right?
because that's not my name. My name doesn't have any obvious semantic meaning anymore because it's changed so much over these
Yeah.
various, borrowings and translations.
Hmm,
And it ultimately comes from another language that I do not speak.
correct.
But there are a lot of names in English today that do come from Old English. I'm thinking of names like Alfred or Edward,
Yeah.
that just a few hundred years ago would still have had meaning to a speaker of Old English. So you can imagine that in Anglo-Saxon England, a guy named Alfred would hear his own name and he would hear the meaning of it, hear Elf Council, because
Oh,
that's what those two words meant.
right.
But what tends to happen is that these names get passed down from generation to generation. So Alfred's grandson is named Alfred, and then his two generations down, the name gets passed down.
Hmm.
And the form of the name doesn't end up changing as much as the language changes.
Yeah.
So, for example, now like Alf is no longer quite the same word as elf. And
Mhm.
then rad is not the word for council anymore. So
No.
that name has lost its meaning to the average English speaker.
But it's not that different from naming kids names that have a meaning in modern English. Let's say Hunter or Daisy.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just that in English these days, we tend to get our baby name ideas from a lot of different sources.
Yeah.
Now, as for the other part of Ben's question, namely that we are technically reading a translation into English while the names remained in Sindarin, actually, Tolkien gives an explanation on his rationale for translating names in Appendix F to The Lord of the Rings. He says, in presenting the matter of the Red Book as a history for people of today to read, the whole of the linguistic setting has been translated as far as possible into terms of our own times. Only the languages alien to the common speech, and by that he means Elvish and Dwarvish languages, as an example, have been left in their original form, but these appear mainly in the names of persons and places. The common speech, as the language of the hobbits and their narratives, has inevitably been turned into modern English. It seemed to me that to present all the names in their original forms would obscure an essential feature of the times as perceived by the hobbits, whose point of view I was mainly concerned to preserve. The contrast between a widespread language, to them as ordinary and habitual as English is to us, and the living remains of far older and more reverend tongues. All names, if merely transcribed, would seem to modern readers equally remote. For instance, if the Elvish name Imladris and the Westron translation Carningul had both been left unchanged.
Right. So that's why he translates the Westron name Carningul
Mhm.
into the English name Rivendell, which is what that means.
Yeah.
So that we can hear that meaning, the same meaning that the hobbits hear when they hear that name.
Right.
We can hear that same meaning as English speakers.
Because it's the Hobbit perspective that we're trying
That's
to
right.
retain. Yeah.
That's right. And so he wants us to hear the meaning of that name when it's said aloud.
Yeah.
Now, that section on translation goes on for a bit longer.
It does.
It's definitely highly worth reading if you're interested, Ben, or anybody else out there is interested. But yeah, I think that's ultimately what's going on here. There are names that do have actual meaning, and Tolkien, of course, knows this, and he's trying to capture that in the story.
Yes, he is.
All right. Well, I think we probably have time for one more, don't we, Alan?
I think we do. Hannah Kay in Milwaukee, Wisconsin sent us this one. Circling back to the topic of Smeagol's depraved doings, which may or may not include cradle robbing, I had a thought about Gandalf's description of Smeagol in The Shadow of the Past. And then Hannah quotes, He dived into deep pools, he burrowed under trees and growing plants, he tunneled into green mounds, and he ceased to look up at the hilltops, or the leaves on trees, or the flowers opening in the air. His head and his eyes were downward. My question concerns the green mounds that Smeagol burrows into. This reminded me of the 7 mounds upon the left and 9 upon the right, where the dead kings are buried in the King of the Golden Hall. Perhaps you can see where I'm going with this. Yeah, I can.
You.
Tolkien describes Smeagol as isolating himself from other people and having no interest in living things like trees and flowers. He's a curious and creepy character, probably grotesquely fascinated by dead things. So I wonder if the mounds that Smeagol slithers into are burial mounds. Do you think it's plausible that Smeagol was in the habit not only of cradle robbing, but grave robbing as well? Have fun delving further into the wretched psyche of our favorite six-toothed little creeper. Thank
Well
you,
said.
Hannah. Well said.
Well said. Wow.
Yeah.
This is grim.
Grim. Seriously grim, but the answer is quite plausible.
It's quite plausible. I mean, look, maybe sometimes a mound is just a mound, and maybe he's burrowing into hills and looking for worms. I don't know. But man, I am not ruling it out.
Well, and I don't think he'd care. You know,
I'm looking for worms in this mound.
Yeah.
Oh, what is this?
Oh,
It's a dead person.
Yeah.
I shall eat him.
Absolutely. I am absolutely not ruling it out.
Yeah.
I definitely think it is plausible that Smeagol was digging through graves.
Yeah.
Gross.
Mm-hmm.
Looking, who knows?
Looking for things to pawn. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, when we were back in the Dead Marshes, he did talk about how, you know, he tried to reach them once. You can't touch them. I tried. He tried.
Right.
He
He
was
tried to
desperately
reach the
trying
dead
to
bodies.
reach the dead bodies.
That's
Why?
right.
Well, we speculated about that. Have to be
Yeah.
awfully hungry.
Yeah. Ugh.
Oh,
Well, and remember later on, as they were making their way down through Ithilien, remember that there were those human remains that they found.
oh, that's
and,
right.
You know, wasn't Sam concerned?
Sam was like, "Yeah, I don't want Gollum to know these things exist.
Right.
I don't want him to see these." Yeah,
Right. Exactly. So, I definitely think it's plausible.
plausible for sure.
I'm not saying there's any evidence that he did,
No,
but there sure as heck isn't any evidence that he didn't.
that is definitely true. I mean, the question before us is it plausible? And the answer is certainly.
Absolutely is plausible.
Is it certain? No, we don't know. It's all speculative, but wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a fun one.
no, a fun, I guess maybe in your mind. I'm not sure about that. I'm no longer hungry if it helps.
No, I'm certainly not hungry anymore
No.
at all. But thank you for giving us that one to speculate on.
Yeah.
Hannah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we do always love speculative questions, so I guess that's what we get.
Indeed, we do. Well, folks, that wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony podcast, but please be sure to join us again next week for our 18th Questions After Nightfall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing like an hour and a half of not being able to answer questions off the top of our heads to help us stay humble.
That'll do the trick every time.
It will. But folks, we want to take a moment to thank the team that helps make this show better. That's our research assistants, along with our barlowman, Becca Davis, producer Jordan Rennells, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, and website guru Phil Dean.
Speaking of the website, please make sure to give us a visit at theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got show notes there, we've got hilarious outtakes, some old Prancing Pony ponderings, and of course our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch.
And definitely check out our library page. You know we love the books here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, and we've provided links for you to get nearly every book we mention on the show. And we do get a few pennies from the purchases you make there, so thank you.
Now we want to thank some more really important people, our patrons at the Kierdan's contribution tier. I'm going to start with DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Bruce in California, Mario in Utah, Seth in Texas, B in California, Joseph in Texas, Kathy from North Carolina, and Lori from Washington.
And then we have Carlos in California, Brian from the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Hal from Washington, D.C., Lise in Switzerland, Dylan in Australia, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Dorwin in Michigan, Karen in the UK, and James in Florida. Thank you all so very much for your support.
And in light of this chapter, I'm going to add, the praise of the praiseworthy is above all rewards. Thank you so much.
Well said, Alan. And folks, please be sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and, well, most of all, what you think the air of Numenor smells like to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com. I mean, we always wondered what do elves smell like?
Is that air A-I-R or is that air H-E-I-R? Like,
oh no, I don't want to know what the air of Numenor.
Because I don't know.
Wow, that's terrible.
I don't know that Strider smells that good right now.
No, probably not. Oh man. Yeah, the A-I-R. Like elvish air.
I know.
The air you breathe. Well, folks, if you want to have a chance to get your actual voice heard on the show, you can send us audio of you asking your question by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Just make sure to still send the question to Barliman, please.
Yeah.
Now, Barliman's a lot more reliable lately, but we do get a lot of mail.
Oh.
So we'll get to you as soon as we can, and your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.